we are the Grants, and this is our YouTube channel. This is our first video. Mm-hmm. This is our introduction. We want to let you know who we are and why we're doing this.
We have a very large family, supersized. We have 11 children between us. We also have interesting quirks about our family. We're a blended family. We have kiddos that are by birth and kiddos that are adopted. We have international adoptions. We have foster care adoption. We do not have a boring life.
We do not have a boring life.
No.
All right, so we met in 2014, and she had 6 children.
Yes.
And I had 1 child.
Yes.
And we were both looking for someone to build the rest of our family with, and spend the rest of our lives with.
And we both had it in our hearts to have a large family that was as many children as God would give us, and that is a very unusual idea to have. And I thought it would be difficult for me to find a husband that would not mind my 6 kids, much less want to have any more. So I had given up on that dream pretty much until I met Michael here.
And I came from a family of 14. I loved growing up in a big family, and I only had 1 son, and I was just looking for someone who wanted a big family, and I was starting to lose hope. I wasn't sure if I was going to find that person, and then Elizabeth.
Yeah, so it was like instant large family
Yep.
for you, and for me it was just, add in another kid, and then we quickly added in more children.
Yes, we did.
So we have had since then 2 birth children and 2 children that we adopted.
So let's talk about our kids.
So the oldest child is Kieran. He's mine by birth, and he's actually grown now, but still lives at home. So he's only 18, but that's technically an adult.
Yes.
He's very, very helpful. I have Luca, and she is incredibly helpful. And then there is your son, Lucas, who is big and helpful and an awesome kid. He fit right in between Luca and Sebastian. Next is Sebastian. He is very imaginative, so he loves to read. And then who we have next? Ruby. And she actually was adopted from the foster care system. I was her foster parent at 3 days old and was able to adopt her when she was 15 months. Yeah, 15 months. And that was an amazing testimony to God, because the whole journey was a roller coaster ride, but we are so blessed to have her in our family. Then we have Willow.
Yes.
After her is Oliver, and those are the kiddos
pre-marriage.
Yes, and then when we got married, we quickly became pregnant with Judah, and he is a little firecracker. So after Judah came Novena in quick succession, and she was born in December, and we actually traveled with her to Ukraine the following month in January to meet our 2 girls that we were in the process of adopting when we fell pregnant with her. And
traveling with Novena was an adventure.
That was very much an adventure. Luckily, she's a good baby. And getting passport photos, that was crazy.
Yes.
Trying to hold her head still and eyes open and mouth closed, and you have to see both ears, and it's really a lot harder than it sounds.
We had to catch her between naps.
Yeah.
And while she was happy.
Right, not crying, not eating, and awake is not, there's not a lot of time for a newborn where that exists. So, and then everywhere we went, people thought we were insane having a newborn bundled up in a sling.
How old was she when we went on our first flight?
5 weeks. She was 5 weeks when we flew to Ukraine the first time, and then she went back on trip 2 a month later, and then trip 3 was a month after that. So she was then 2 months, then 3 months old. When we came home with the girls, she was 3 months old. So she's had a lot of flights.
We had not been married too long before Elizabeth had the courage to let me know that she really, really, really wanted to seek out an adoption in another country for a child with special needs.
Right.
And so she asked me if I was down with that, and absolutely, I thought that was a great idea. Let's look into it. And we started looking at photos on Reese's Rainbow.
Yes, yeah, which I've been following that ministry for 10 years, for over 10 years since they started, longing and wishing to be able to do that, to have a partner that had that same heart for children with special needs that are just wasting away in institutions, in Eastern Europe particularly. So I've been praying for and financially supporting families and children for a long, long time. So for God to bring it all the way to where I could do it was definitely a testimony to his faithfulness and him restoring dreams that, you know, we thought were dead. And
once you start looking at these kids, once you start looking at these photos, you want to adopt every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult because you have to look through these and you have to ask God, you know, which one of these children is ours?
Right.
Which one?
I just sent you a bunch of pictures, and I'm
Yes.
like, pick one. And he found Wren's picture.
Yes.
And he said, this one. And I said, really? Her? Okay, okay.
Instantly. I mean, I looked through so many photos, and when I saw hers, instantly I knew this is our daughter.
Yeah.
And
I didn't
wanna
have
know.
it that quick. It was definitely not that quick for me. But I said, okay. It's funny. Then, you said, okay, let's do this one. So we started moving forward, and then we're in the process, and I find this other little girl. And I'm like, I find her picture, and she's just smiling. And then I found people that had met her and had children from her institution and told me horror stories about how horrible it is and stories about how sweet she was. And my heart was completely broken. And I just came to him and I'm like, can we adopt her too? And he's like,
No.
no. He told me no.
I didn't say it that quickly. I
He was like, no, we're adopting one child with special needs. We don't know how this is going to go. We don't know how hard. It was very rational, very reasonable.
I had a lot of very good reasons
He did.
why we need to.
I couldn't argue any of them.
No,
like,
you
it was the
couldn't.
first time I didn't argue with him about something that I wanted that he didn't want. I just shut my mouth. And I was just so sad and brokenhearted about it, but I just took it to God and I was like, if it's your will, God, you're going to have to change his heart because I'm not even going to try because I don't want him to do this for me. I want him to do it because this is our child and you've called him to do it. So I just shut my mouth for weeks. Oh, that was hard.
we had
I think I said like one thing to you, right? Like, what was it?
You did. Because all of my reasons for why we should only focus on one adoption had to do with knowing our limits and knowing what it was that we were capable of.
Very reasonable. It was
Very reasonable. And I said that, you know, we need to do what we know that we can do and not reach beyond what our needs were. And I said, we need to stay within reason here. And you said to me, since when has God ever called us
to be reasonable?
to be reasonable?
That's what I said. Yeah, I do remember that now. And then I shut my mouth.
and that kind of settled in my heart. It was a bit of a challenge, but I knew that I could not commit to something that in my heart I didn't feel at peace with, that this is what God was calling us to do. And God just let it sit there and simmer there for a while. Yeah. And probably a couple of weeks later, we had gotten a call from our social worker who was doing our home study, who was asking us dozens and dozens of questions, interviewing us, trying to figure out who we were, what kind of parents we were. She was building this family profile of us. And she asked me over the phone, she said, why an international adoption? Why not something local? And as I began to explain to her where my heart was, and explain to her what I knew Elizabeth's heart was, out of this conversation somehow erupted me talking about how we want to have 2 children. We want to adopt both of these. And I'm saying this and I'm hearing the words coming out of my mouth saying, wait, I didn't agree to that.
I specifically did not agree to that. Why am I explaining this to the social worker? Oh, we need to do this thing that I wasn't planning to do.
And I got off the phone with the social worker, and I called Elizabeth, and I said, oh, hey, by the way, I guess we're getting both.
Yeah. I had this conversation, and this is how it went, and I'm like, why would you tell her that? and I was very happy. I was like, wow, yay!
So we let them know that we were committing to not just Wren, but Hannah as well.
And it was a huge leap. I mean, it's still a huge leap for me, even though I wanted her. As soon as he said yes, it's like that whole, oh no. Okay, it's like pulling tug of war, and the other person just lets go. You just like fall on your butt. Like that's kind of the feeling of like, wait, what are we doing now? But we're both adventurous, so we can get past that initial like feeling when you're doing something crazy. You know, especially when we know that it's what God is calling you to. It's like that you've got that safety net. You know that God's not calling me to do something that. Well, he'll call me to do things that I can't handle, but he won't call me to do something that he can't handle. So if he's calling me to do it, then he's got enough grace to be sufficient for whatever he's calling us to do.
So adoption is an adventure in and of itself, and international adoption was just crazy cakes.
Yes, very crazy. Another thing is very expensive, but again, God was very faithful to bring in every dollar that we needed because we did not have the money for it, didn't have the budget for it,
No.
but God was just brought in funds from all over.
So after we got home from Ukraine with the girls,
In April.
it turns out that Wren was going to need heart surgery, very minor heart surgery. They told us that it was just a small heart defect.
Mm-hmm.
And this was going to be a quick operation, couple hours at tops. They're going to go in with a catheter and repair the damage. But that didn't turn out to be the case.
No, they started the catheter procedure and they told us it would be 2 hours, and then they called us to the waiting room like 15 minutes after they got back there, and we were like, why are we being called by the surgeon? And the surgeon came out with a picture, and he said, there's a picture of her heart with all the dye in it, and he said, well, we have a major problem that wasn't caught on the echo or the EKG. She has her pulmonary vessels go into the wrong side of her heart. She has partial anomalous venous return, which is very rare. She has both lungs are involved, which is incredibly rare, and we need to do open heart surgery as soon as possible. We were not planning to have a huge surgery right before moving because at that point we'd already Michael had put in notice of his job, we had bought a house, and we were moving to Ohio, which is across the country, but we had to do this open heart surgery. We actually weren't even able to go to the 6-week check for the cardiologist in Oregon. We had to do it in Ohio because it was less than 6 weeks between when we had to drive with 11 children and over 8 days across 2,500 miles camping. It was so fun.
So we're moving from Oregon to Ohio, and we know that it's going to be a long move, and we're trying to budget because we're on a budget. And
right. We have no money either at this point, and we just bought this house, which where all our money went.
And Elizabeth has this wonderful idea that instead of getting hotel rooms across the country,
that was a great idea.
We should camp instead.
Our family needs like 3 or 4 hotel rooms. It is so expensive. So we camped, and that was way cheaper, and it was fun, but I think the only reason I have gray hair is from that trip. It was really hard.
So she buys these pop-up tents, these like instant tents. They only take a couple seconds.
Amazing.
They're really great.
Yeah.
And they ended up working really great, except for when it was raining.
Yeah.
Or
it's an adventure.
When we got into the campground at like 11 o'clock at night.
Such a story for another time.
Oh, yes.
But we bought this huge farmhouse, and we plan to show how we are fixing it up and restoring it and knocking down walls and putting up walls and just, restoring some things, changing some things. It's an 1800s farmhouse, and it's an adventure that we are on right now. So we hope to show you our lives, our kids, our house, our homeschooling journey, our adoption journey, past, present, future. And yeah, it'll be loud and crazy, so you should subscribe and like our videos and
Yes.
follow along with us. Okay, there, good.
So look at camera. Everybody, let's go!